So welcome to our first Worthy Coffee Chats. And a little bit about us, why we're here, why we created this. Months ago, when Pat and I got together, she talked a lot about women and feeling worthy, and that it's been 100 years of women stepping into their power, and since the first day, correct? Pat, you can give us a little bit more feedback on that. But the more we talked about the word worthy and feeling worthy, we realized that there's a lot of women out there who don't feel worthy. And it stirred up a lot of things in us and in the people around us. So we thought that we would create a space for women to come together and let's have conversations about what we can do to feel more worthy and see where it goes. So welcome.
So I don't think, I mean, I wouldn't put a timeline on when people were stepping into their power because you don't know, all through history, there's been individuals that have been able to um, blow past everybody else. But I think in general, um, to start off with, one of the things that I noticed was that a lot of companies were doing empowerment seminars and workshops for women to help them feel more empowered. And that word has been used in a lot of other workshops coming from different factions of society. But I thought, well, for me, the word empowerment, it's tricky because power means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And especially when it's used and abused in a different way. So I thought, well, why don't I relate to that word empowered? And I thought, because a lot of the stuff that I was seeing was kind of superficial in terms of teaching steps how to do particular things. But really, what's underneath that? I like to go deeper. What's underneath that is empowerment doesn't stick unless you feel worthy. If you don't feel worthy of the good life, or if you don't feel worthy enough to speak up for yourself, or worthy enough to even make an income that makes sense for yourself, you can teach empowerment, but none of that's going to stay. It bypasses, I believe the word empowerment bypasses the true issue here, and that is women not feeling worthy to be out in the world and to actualize their own ambition. And that, I think, is systemic, and that is a cultural thing, and that we've all been treated a certain way. And when did that start? Well, there's all kinds of theories about when that all starts. And does it start a certain way individually, or does it start in communities, or does it start in social arenas that you belong to, or other kinds of communities? Where are you getting that in reinforcement? Are you getting it from the people that you're related to? Are there other women around you growing up that tell you how it is and how you should act and how you should be and what your role is as a girl and a young woman and a mature woman? It's kind of hard to go against the grain if you're being taught one way, but you don't in your heart feel that that's something that you can relate to. So it's very complex. I mean, it really comes down to the individual and how they personally feel. But I did find myself in church one time, and during communion, the entire congregation during the bells as communion was being prepared were saying, "I'm not worthy." And I think my head almost exploded, because that is not at all the message that's there. And I thought, these people, are they doing it superficially, or do they really believe that they're not worthy? And what are they not worthy of? I think the exploration of feeling worthy is so different from every individual that we can't make blanket statements, but maybe there are certain things that are general to everyone. And certainly I think there's a lot of women that I know that are a little intimidated about speaking up for themselves, using their own voice to say what they want, even in their families, but certainly out in public. And I think that is changing a little bit, but I was just talking to someone with younger children than I have, and because there's a perception out that the young women today have much more of an ability to stand up for themselves, and that's not necessarily the case. It really is an individual thing. So I think that's the genesis of it.
Well, and I think you're right. We can't make a general statement, but we can make a general statement that it's a behavior and a way of being that we learn as children from our caretakers.
Mhm.
So if our caretakers, mothers, grandmothers, the other women in our lives were not strong, then that's what we're going to take on, that it's not safe to speak up. It's not safe to be heard. And even though a child can't speak, a baby up until the age of 4, 5, 6 is observing and learning how to be in the world by the people that surrounds that little child. So it is passed down. It is partially ancestrally, unless for some reason, somehow you were blessed to have a really strong woman in your family that you latched onto that. But I believe that the majority of women were taught and trained to be quiet, be the good little girl, take care of everybody else. Don't be selfish. Oh my God, how dare you be selfish, right? And I'm finally learning to say, this is what I'm doing today because this is what I like, but it's taken me decades to get here, right? So yeah. How are you feeling, Joyce? What's coming up for you as we're talking about this?
Well, I agree 100%. I mean, I might not have felt myself growing up that I couldn't do a lot of things, but it was more of a, and it wasn't because of my mother not doing things. I think it was the fear of my father that I couldn't do things. So there are different ways of looking at it. But in talking about people today, it's funny, I was observing people yesterday and really noticing the women that were strong, I mean, that were, you know, self-sufficient more or less, and some of the others. And they were on the low end of the spectrum. There was more of the other type. So there's definitely, we're on the right subject here. And that got me to thinking about men, woman. And the word woman, WOMAN or AN, whichever. All I could think of it, woe is me. And I never thought of it that way before.
Wow.
Somehow we got a title that diminished us in my thought at that when that came to me. And I said, no wonder we have to struggle to make it. But why is it called woman and woe me? You know that.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
So
Wow, hadn't even thought of that. Thank you for that realization.
now you're going to think about it.
Time to change that.
But you know what? Words mean so much because I think when people think of their worth, they're thinking of money. And that's been also very confusing.
Yes.
Because its translation into the business world isn't the only translation for feeling worthy. Because it goes down to everything. It goes down to people who can't find a partner, may not feel worthy of that.
Mhm.
People that don't have health might not feel worthy of health. Or in my case, I just went through a health crisis But even in that crisis, even though people have good intentions for helping you, I found that I had to speak up for myself a couple of times in order to address the things that I wanted to happen.
And I think, Pat, you bring up a good place. Absolutely, in healthcare, a woman needs to stand in her power to be heard. Because too many times, I think it's been like, well, you don't understand your body. We do.
Mhm.
Even all about giving birth, right? Decades ago, thousands of years ago, a woman would give birth out in the field, or, not laying down on a table, which is probably the worst position to give birth,
Mhm.
right? But now all of a sudden it's got to be on a table because it's easier for them, not necessarily better for the woman.
I totally agree with that. My son is 52. So when I gave birth, it was really all the doctors were men, and I was very young. So I'm thinking, well, I guess they know, instead of me understanding that I know because it's my body, you know. And things have changed a little bit in that direction, but there's still nuances about the medical procedures that we have to go through, or choose to go through, that require you to have a mindset of staying centered and um, and balance out what's the best thing to do for yourself. Because what you're saying about, the reference that you made about being selfish, well, once you feel worthy and once you do more things for yourself, the more you can do for others. If you don't feel worthy to begin with, you just get drained. You're constantly putting others first, and all of a sudden you got nothing left. Well, who's that going to benefit?
And that's when the physical illnesses show up: fibromyalgia, arthritis, pain everywhere. And we all know those women who, no matter how much pain they're in, they still say yes. They still do, for so many people.
I used to say it all the time. I'm better at saying no now.
Good for you. Did you, Joyce, so in that process of learning to say no, could you define it more? Did the idea of feeling worthy, or did the feeling of feeling worthy come into play?
Well, I was thinking when you were talking before, you were right. Worthy was more dollar signs than a feeling, a personal feeling inside. And I don't believe that the word worthy came to me until, much later in years, especially now with our conversations, but going up, that I was worthy of anything. I was just, the word worthy wasn't in the language only with concerning money. It was, I was not good enough, I was not this or enough or that, whatever, I was not enough, but it was never the word worthy. So I'm taking on for myself the word worthy now as a whole, way of being, and not think of it as money.
I love that.
Just the opposite of what I've always known.
I love that.
And yeah, I just, I've thought back on that, and the only time I was just not good enough. I was not worthy, and how diminishing is that for yourself?
I think very much when you don't feel like you're enough, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's so self-destructive.
Right. And, and that applied to, the pay scale when I was working. But I was not good enough. I'm female, but the word worthy never came to me.
Mhm.
So it's good that you're educating people out there, women out there of that word, and we got to change it and take the woman out of it and put female in there or something.
I
I don't even know if I like females. So, now that I said that, let's invent a new word.
How about queen?
I like that. I like that.
Is that it,
Joyce,
Pat?
what's that?
Did I answer Pat's question?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
And so Joyce, now that you're stepping into feeling more worthy, what shifts have you noticed in your life?
Oh, I'm much happier. I'm much lighter with myself. Um, Everything. I mean, it's a freedom of. I think my body is more comfortable. I don't have the pain that I usually have. Yes, pain comes up, and we for whatever things when I hit my shin on something, that definitely the pain comes up, and I might call it something else. um, yeah, it's the whole different way of being.
Yeah.
I like that. Defining it as a way of being. I like that.
Mm. Yeah, it's who you're being, not who you're doing, right?
Yeah,
And that's the shift. I would always hear from people, who are you being? Who are you being? I'm like, I don't know who I'm being. Now I finally get it because I'm in the moment. And I talked about yesterday how I'm so used to the weekends doing some work and doing. And yesterday, yeah, I got some stuff done. I did stuff that I really enjoyed wanting to do.
Oh.
And I was just being in the moment. And I still had that inner voice. You didn't get enough done. But it was okay because I was relaxed and I was enjoying the moment, enjoying going for a bike ride with my husband, enjoying my gardens, like enjoying what is already right around me that we rush through all the time.
Can I ask you a question? When you get to that point, do you find yourself being less critical of others?
you're asking me that, or
Either.
I think you're less critical of others. I mean, it was a rough Saturday. It's been a real busy week, and I overdid. I know I did not eat well, which I definitely know. And trying to find something to eat at 8, 9 o'clock at night and go right to bed I knew was wrong, but and getting up at 5:30 didn't help me. So I did a little backtracking there, but like yesterday, I had an opportunity to be free in the afternoon, and I just sat around and did nothing. I tried laying down, but I'm never good at doing that in the middle of the day anyway. But I did watch some basketball on women's basketball, so I fell asleep. Okay. But then later I went outside and I mowed the lawn and did some work in the garden because the garden just exploded. I wasn't watching it. It's like a boiling water that doesn't boil when you're watching, but turning around and it's all over the place. So, but I was happy to do what I was doing because of what had happened with the sale was successful. I was pleased about that. And then I had a chance to think about what I wanted to do and I didn't try to do everything, but I just did a little bit here, a little bit there. That's it.
This is really interesting because I just finished reading a book that talks about this woman talks about her own personal journey, but she also reflects on the culture of women and how easily we get away from what makes us happy.
Huh.
And what we want to do. And I hadn't really thought about that. You know, I've met a lot of people that, especially guys, they have no problem saying they're going to go off doing this and they're going to go off doing that and all that. And I remember thinking, I don't really know what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's a common theme. I run into that with so many clients and friends, and we've never been asked what we enjoy doing. So it's not surprising that we don't know.
And like you're saying, if that's the role models that we had growing up, we understand a way of being is to deny that part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then once you stop denying that part of yourself, then you spend less time criticizing other people who don't deny that part of themselves. It can get really complicated. I think it might go back to mind your own business.
There you go.
And it's funny that you bring up that point about being less critical, because at one point I was walking through my yard and I had planted another hydrangea, tiny little hydrangea, probably a couple of years ago. And I was like, wow, that poor thing, it's not growing. I wonder what it needs. Does it need Miracle Grow? Does it need better soil, more fertilizer? And the thought that came to my mind was, oh, where in my life am I not accepting the parts of me that could use more growing? And where am I being so mean to that part of myself, saying, what's wrong with you? How come you're not perfect? How come you haven't figured it out yet? Instead of saying, oh, what do you need?
I love that.
I can tell you what it needs. It needs it's like they say, talk to your flowers. It needs loving care. So no matter what you need, what you feed it, it's for you to be present with it to make it grow.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's just like the little petunia that sprouted up out in the front walk, right edge of the front walk. And all of a sudden it's just like, where did that come from? And it's scrawny, but it's got a nice flower on it. So now I make sure I water it. And so it's actually had a second blossom. And I have no idea where it came from. But I love stuff like that because that speaks to me. That's nature. That's God talking to me. That just speaks to me.
That's cool. That's cool.
All right, so we're getting close. We don't want to keep this going on too long because I know everybody's busy. This has been a great conversation. And for those of you who are watching the replay, feel free to share your thoughts, your comments. We'd like to keep this discussion going. So we'll be doing these coffee chats about once a month. And anybody here have any last words?
No, but I love this idea. This is great.
Well, my last thought is that we all make decisions all day long, small ones and big ones. When we start making them from a place of feeling worthy, they're much more satisfying choices.
Perfect.
Great. I love this. I love it. And the company is good too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joyce, for
Have a
being
good
here.
one. And stay cool now. Don't overdo.
You too.
I'm definitely doing that.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.